Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. I recently was shown a burn list that I thought was actually pretty interesting, which isn't a sentence you hear very often, so I thought I would give it a go. As you can probably tell just looking at the mana base, there's something weird going on here. We've got these Volcanic Islands and these Fiery Islets. Now, burn decks have played Fiery Islet as a way of having mana whilst also being able to turn it into a card later on so you don't get flooded as much. But we're actually using the blue mana sometimes in our deck. And a cursory glance says, oh, these cards are red. However, Scalding Viper, so this is a new card, so we're trying new cards, although Lost Caverns of Ixalan has just come out as I'm recording this, so I guess this isn't the newest set anymore. Even so, it's new to me, this card. So it's 2 mana, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand as a sorcery, or 2 mana, make a 2/1, whenever an opponent casts a spell with mana value 3 or less, you get to ping them for 1. So this is kind of like a worse Eidolon, but can also bounce problem permanents out of the way for you. And multiplying effects like Eidolon is always quite powerful if you can sort of get them down, because if they start dealing with your stuff, it's going to be more difficult because they're going to be taking more damage and letting you get through. So as you can imagine, Burn is a deck that wants to reduce your opponent's life total to 0 as quickly as possible. So you've got some aggressive 1-drops in Goblin Guide and Monastery Swiftspear. We've got these 2-drops which can be pretty potent, so Eidolon can really shut down a lot of decks. Scalding Viper is something I'm interested to see how it plays out. Obviously this is the reason why this deck is running blue sources. We've got a whole bunch of 1 mana deal 3 damage spells, as you would expect to find. We have the big haymakers here, so we're going in with 4 Price of Progress and 3 Fireblast, so these are the ones that are going to get us over the finish line a lot of the times. And then another card that I thought was weird to have in here was Ensnaring Bridge. Now this isn't my list, this is a top 4 list from a paper tournament I saw. And this Ensnaring Bridge is interesting to me because at the moment there are quite a lot of creature decks in the format. And quite often what tends to beat burn decks is your opponent making a bigger creature than you and you being forced to just stick the burn upstairs while they kill you. And things like Urza's Saga can be a bit of a pain for that. As you know, they make big guys that also get them a Shadow Spear, and then you're kind of out of luck at that point. So the Ensnaring Bridge is kind of to deal with that. It's also good against some of the combo decks that are trying to cheat big things in, whether it be Reanimator or Show and Tell. And you know, there's these scam decks running around just slapping down a turn 2 6/5 guy in the Troll, which is just going to beat most of the things we're doing. So I can understand the attraction of Ensnaring Bridge, but it does feel like it diverges from our plan a little bit. However, we will see. What we can do as well, I suppose, is bounce our own Ensnaring Bridge, because this doesn't say a target opponent controls. So we can bounce our own thing here. So we can use this and then get in a sneaky lethal attack. So you can certainly see why this is a bit of a divergence from regular burn, and who doesn't want to see a new exciting card, albeit if a new set has just come out like 2 days ago or whatever. Also, by having the actual blue spells, it does justify having fetches a little bit more. So normally you run fetches for the purposes of Searing Blaze out of the sideboard, but we actually have a little bit more use for them because we do have a blue spell that we might want to cast sometime. Sideboard-wise, we've got some Graveyard Hate for the Graveyard decks, so just going to go underneath us. That makes sense to me. We have 3 Meltdowns. So normally you would see something like Smash to Smithereens. But between Ensnaring Bridge and Meltdown, we're kind of playing for a slightly longer game, is kind of the feel I get, which is weird for a burn deck to do, right? But it means that we're not just immediately dead if our opponent plays a guy and their life total is an okay amount. So I guess I can see why these are together, whereas if we didn't have Ensnaring Bridge, I think these would probably be the Smash to Smithereens and we'd be more about racing. So I'm curious to see how this plays out. Searing Blaze for creature decks. Exquisite Firecraft is a card that's always unimpressed me, to be honest. It's 3 mana for 4 damage, so it is 4 damage from 1 card, which is a reasonable amount. And being uncounterable sometimes, you know, that can be relevant and be a thing that will tip you over the edge and win a game. But it's never something I've been particularly excited to see in burn decks. I understand why people play it though, but you kind of end up scrapping for spaces in your burn sideboard because you don't really want to board out too many things because your deck is kind of a critical mass deck, right? And then we've got a couple of Dead and Gone. So this can bounce a big scary creature. The dead side of it is pretty much not going to be a thing we're playing, which does make me wonder why we're running this card. I understand it has the flexibility, but if we've got blue mana anyway, why not just play more bounce effects if that's what we're actually really after? We could bounce some other problem permanents perhaps, like a Leyline or something. So that's kind of my thoughts on this. So I'm not convinced by this by all of the choices in this deck. But because they're kind of out there, that's why I want to play it, right? Because if you don't try weird stuff, you never learn. And I'd much rather try something and fail and learn than just kind of plodding away with the same old thing. All right, I think we're just about ready to rock and roll with this one. Remember to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. And if you're interested in my Patreon, there's a new tier on there now where you can have regular donation decks if you're part of that tier, as well as access to all the articles I write. And there's also a base tier just for a couple of quid a month or whatever. And that will give you a free entry into my monthly draw for a free donation deck. So if you want to support the channel, that's a great way of doing it. And the link is in the description. Plug over, let's play some Burn. If you're looking to play Legacy on MTGO like me, why not try Card Hoarder? They're a rental service that I personally use, and I found them better than other rental services that I've used in the past. So why not give them a try? We're on the play for round one. Our hand is kind of not great. 4 lands is basically a mulligan already, so I think we will go lower. Because we're a critical mass deck, we can't afford to mulligan too much, but this hand is great. In terms of burn decks, at least. So what are we putting back here? I think it's probably the Price of Progress. This is a card that can do lots or do nothing. I'd rather keep the more consistent source of damage here. We do have 4 to find as well, so not the end of the world. Let's smash in the Swiftspear. Get an attack. Let's see what our opponent's on, and we maybe have some choices to make in terms of, are we firing lightning bolts and stuff at our opponent's face? Darkslick Shores. Haven't seen one of those for a while. Dark Rich Shore. Alright, so we might be dead this turn. Entomb. Alright, do we get to scoop this one up? A Grizzlebrand, a Shallow Grave. Alright, so our opponent is on some sort of Tin Fin style deck. So draw 7 here. If they target us with a discard spell, then we will scoop. Otherwise, we'll just let them play out because it's quite fun watching this deck go off sometimes. And even if it's smashing my face, then I can certainly appreciate it. Alright, that's enough. So what they do here is they play the Children of Corliss. They gain all the life they've just paid, and then draw that many more cards, play another Children of Corliss or reanimate this one, do it again, but this time they gain double the life because they paid it twice. Yeah, pretty good. So, this is a Leyline of the Void matchup, as it turns out. I don't realistically think we want anything else. I think our little Viper is going to be enough of the sort of bounce effect. Now, we can obviously bounce at instant speed, but that's going to be a 3-mana bounce effect. And I think if we're trying to do that, we've probably already got there. How good is Price of Progress going to be? If our opponent's running Darkslick Shores, they're probably not running many basics. They're just running that as an additional Underground Sea. So, are we removing something like Rift Bolt? Kind of slow. This does leave us with less burn spells. You know, we have 7 cards that don't actually do our plan. But our plan is so bad in this matchup, I think we kind of need to do that. So what does this hand do? Our opponent is basically a turn 1 combo deck. I don't think we can actually keep this. Let's mulligan. Alright, we can keep this one. Our opponent might not be ready for this. I think we can get rid of the Fireblast. Although the surprise damage is going to be useful if our opponent goes low with something like a Grizzlebrand. So maybe we get bin off the price here. And we start with our Leyline in play. That should hopefully annoy our opponent a little bit, but they're a blue deck, so they're going to have ways of bouncing this. And because bounce is kind of a universal answer to a lot of stuff, I imagine they're going to have boarded it in. This will make them think about counter spells, since we've played out the Volcanic Island. They might think we're like a more aggressive version of Izzet Delver. So muddy in the waters a little bit here. Darkslick Shores again. Now it might be that our opponent just doesn't have the... Alright, so... Oh, this is the Entombstay deck. I played this a while ago on my channel. Let's see how low they go here. So this is going to take them to 9. We have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if this is a pass the turn pile, we do win this turn if our opponent can't interact with us. Well, it's much easier hitting someone for 10 than it is for 20. Let's have a look. Sheldock Isles and all that jazz. Do they have a way of winning this turn? Oh, they do. That's really bad news for us. So Brainstorm here. So they have a Cycler and a Lion's Eye Diamond. They'll play the Lion's Eye Diamond, cycle in response, crack the Lion's Eye Diamond, play the Thassa's Oracle. Yep. Easy money right there. Okay, they got to consider first, so they're going to have an empty pile as well. Yep, we just got turn 1 twice in a row, so what are we supposed to do about that one? Alright, an interesting start. Let's go to round 2. Want to play for round 2. Goblin Guide into some other stuff. I guess we keep this. Our Ensnaring Bridge is looking pretty bad, but you never know. Right, here comes a Goblin. So another one of the reasons why I really wanted to... Minor misstep, that's pretty good against us, isn't it? Another reason why I wanted to actually try out Burn today was because it's obviously a budget deck. And if you can find budget decks, even weird builds of them that end up being alright, I think that's worthwhile doing. It can help people get into the format. I don't think Burn is actually very good. So we'll see how it pans out here. But I thought we'd at least test it for you, lovely people. Right, so this is the turn we want to try and get our stuff down before... They don't have Mental Misstep up right now. I think it's better to just throw out this Goblin Guide. Our opponent's probably got a Daze over there. We know they have a Misstep. There's a Scalding Tarn. And a Snapcaster Mage. Are we supposed to lightning bolt our opponent now? Or are we supposed to force them to use their mana on a minor misstep? I think we're supposed to lightning bolt them now. And if they Daze, it's annoying, but it's also not that big a deal. So if they at some point drop a giant Murktide, we're going to be pretty happy about this Ensnaring Bridge, which might buy us enough turns to draw. Right, Force of Negation, Snapcaster Mage. So it might buy us enough turns to draw the necessary burn. So our plan from here on out is to get these Eidolons cooking. Let's attack, get some more information about the cards that might be in our opponent's deck. Lightning Bolt on top. I'm going to do a Brainstorm here to guarantee a draw. They are indeed. So if we play the Eidolon out here, they will do the Brainstorm first in response to the Eidolon, so it's not really going to make a difference either way. But they're doing this now so they can fire a Lightning Bolt here and save damage perhaps. Right, Kraken Fetch Land, that helps us a little bit. Basic Mountain, so they're fetching around Price of Progress, they know what the deal is here. Okay, and they still found a thing on top, interesting. There's a Lightning Bolt, yep. Puts our opponent to 10. Play this out so we can play around a Daze. Right, now we're in with an Eidolon. This Sleepy Fairy is going to be waking up soon. Murktide Region. Oh, remember that scenario that we mentioned? That we'd be really glad if... Alright, so we have a Lightning Bolt here. I think if we take a single hit from this Murktide, it's probably lights out for us. Under our own Eidolon. Apparently they've got 4 cards in hand. I don't think they still have this misstep, but maybe they do. Alright. So now we've got a little bit of protection. Brazen Borrower is probably a thing they have in their deck. What we can also do is we can lightning bolt our opponent and then respond to the triggers with other stuff. You get in a weird situation if life totals get low. But if we just sit in a holding pattern, eventually our opponent will draw good blue spells. Right, so they are lightning bolting our Eidolon. That's going to deal them some damage. Goodbye, Eidolon. If you didn't like that one, though, you're not going to like this next one. Do I play around Daze here? We know they have Mental Misstep. So I think I would rather Lightning Bolt with the Eidolon in play. A Spell Stutter Sprite. Interesting. Now we could take out the Sprite. They do have a Mental Misstep here, though. Well, they might not have the Misstep, but they must have kept it. It's such a useful card in this matchup. So this resolves. We can't bolt this Sleep Cursed Fairy. So we could bolt this, and our Eidolon will stick. This will force them to use the Misstep on our bolt, which means this will counter this. Or we can just go to the face. Like, Misstep is definitely countering this, regardless, if they have it. I think this is fine. It's kind of a wash either way, I think, because if we go to the face and they misstep it, whatever. Yeah, so they do still have the misstep, sure. So they can peck us away for 1 here, but we can fire up burn spells now without worrying about our own Eidolon triggers. So in theory, as long as our opponent doesn't bounce our Ensnaring Bridge in the next few turns, we are odds on to win this game. Flame of Anor, what does this do? Draw 2 cards, destroy target artifact. Well, that's pretty bad news, isn't it? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So they can just bash with this guy and then kill us in 1 swing next turn. That's the correct play here. We need to find something good here. A mountain. I guess we draw off the Fiery Islet. A Lava Spike. Are they going to crack a fetch land? These guys will definitely kill us. I guess we can Fireblast away the Sprite and live. And then crack back for 2, and if we find any 3 mana burn spell, we can possibly win the game. If they just crack with 6, then that's fine. It gives us another draw step as well. They're going to go all in. They are. So the only way we win this is by Fireblasting a Spellstar Sprite. Not quite how we drew this one up. But this does give us a line to win the game, potentially. If our opponent doesn't have anything else, we get to bash for 2, and any 1 mana burn spell we get. Alright, so this is going to get the lightning bolt, isn't it? And then they're going to shoot us here. And that's going to be the 3 points of damage they need. Yep. That'll do. We were very close there. It's a bit unfortunate our opponent is playing main deck Artifact Hate in their list. But, you know, sometimes that's going to happen, I suppose. So, Searing Blaze is pretty good. I don't think we need these Dead Gons. They're fine. But I don't really want to kind of mitigate some of our plan. Now, there is an argument here to drop the Ensnaring Bridges because our opponent's already seen them. But I think we're going to drop Price and Progress because our opponent is the sort of the blue-red wizard deck, which is pretty much a basics heavy deck. So I don't think we want to be messing with that. Exquisite Firecraft is uncounterable. I think one of those is probably going to be better than Price of Progress. But I don't think it's going to be better than the other pieces we have here. What does this hand do? No 1-drop in our burn deck. 3 lands. I don't think I can keep this one. Well, this is the other way, isn't it? But screw beats flood, right? It's the age-old mantra. So we keep this, we throw back the bridge, and we're just going to go pedal to the metal and just hope that we can cross the finish line with enough damage here. Like, we were pretty close last game. Monastery Swiftspear. Come in with the attacks. Alright, what have you got for us, opponents? It's going to be a fairy? It is. So this does have wards, so we can't just cleanly take it up with the blaze here. Interesting. Place out. We want to use the Chain Lightning now, while our opponent doesn't have any red mana. I think we'll go get the Volk here, and just get the damage in while we can. If they daze, they set themselves back quite a bit. But those were 4 damage spells because of the Swiftspear there. So we put our opponent to 10 at the end of turn 2. And this Sleepy Fairy is going to be asleep for a little while longer. We can drop an Eidolon. Or if we draw a land, we can Searing Blaze a bigger creature. If we get another land, then we can pay for the ward and try and kill this. Well, that feels like a 4 mana play into daze potentially. But they didn't have daze on the previous turn. So Snapcaster Mage is a very real threat here. Scalding Viper. It's an interesting one, isn't it? I think we attack with the Swiftspear here. If our opponent flashes in a Snapcaster to block with, we can ping it away. I think we're going to try the Eidolon. They didn't have a daze before. Okay, a Spellstar Sprite. That's pretty good. This gives us a good Searing Blaze target. Their Sleepy Fairy is still asleep. They can pay 2 and then also go there on tap step and wake up. Okay, so not doing that. A Mutavault. That is a fairy. The land would be interesting. So what happens here? Just the Swiftspear. That's a-okay with me. Sure, so they're untapping their fairy a little bit here. So we want to hold the Scalding Viper for Murktide Regent. That's kind of what we're scared of. Okay, another fairy, we don't care about that. Is this first one crashing or not? Playing another one. Alright, old Sleepy Fairy Town. It's getting a little bit awkward for us. A Lightning Bolt, you say? That's not a terrible one. So we can grow this one a fair amount now. We can grow it twice. I'm certainly down to try that. Let's go get ourselves a mountain here. Alright, let's try and Searing Blaze this Mutavault away. Well, that was a nice Stone Rain, wasn't it? If our opponent doesn't block here, they die. If they do block, they lose their fairy. Pow. Puts him to 2. Not a bad turn. We still have emergency relief for a Murktide. If we draw another land and they hold back a blocker. Alright, this says non-land permanents. This isn't going to work against Mutavault, unfortunately. So now we have an interesting choice. Are we... Like, they're definitely going to block. And they're also going to untap one of these fairies next turn. So I think we're supposed to play the Viper. We hold the land in hand for Searing Blaze purposes. Alright. So our opponent doesn't get cast many spells. And they need to have 2 blockers back. Yep, so they're just going to funnel a bunch of mana into one of these fairies. So they're going to have a 3/3 and blocks. Interesting card this. I've not actually played with it myself yet. It feels like it's good in some matchups, but like really bad in others. Like any sort of matchup we have to race, this card doesn't really do a great deal. Alright, so they can untap this fairy. They can remove the stun counter and then they can untap it again. So that's not going to be where we want to be here. So they can untap it and then they can also... I think we're just going to build a critical mass of creatures here. So they're going to have 3 blockers this turn, so there's no point attacking. But casting spells is going to be awkward. Also, unlike Eidolon, this is one-sided. It only deals the 1 damage, but it is one-sided. Right, so now they're going to have 2 fairies. If they play a Murktide now, I'm going to feel really annoyed, but I think playing a Scalding Viper is still right. Yep, they're still back on the old blocks. Exquisite Firecraft, you say? Uncounterable? I was smack talking this card earlier, and it's just won us a game, so I will shut my mouth. Do I want Price of Progress? We've seen Mutavaults, but again, we saw so many basics there. This is going to be 2 to 4 damage, I think. Whereas a lot of our other stuff is probably just going to be that anyway at a better rate. Ensnaring Bridge is basically just for Murktide. But I think on the draw, that's going to be a thing that's more essential. I think we just go back in as is. 1 drop and then some other spells. I'll keep this. Now our opponent can lead out on Blue Source Pass. Right, Fairy. Right. I don't mind seeing the Fireblast. That will come in handy later. They can daze us here. That can prevent a decent chunk of damage. Alright, so... they're probably not going to play many Searing Blaze targets super early on here, are they? So we don't want to fire off our Chain Lightning in the face of what's happening over there. If they flash something in, we can blow it up. Otherwise, you just sit on this Searing Blaze. They can just funnel their mana into this little fairy. See, for exchanges like that, the fairy seems pretty cool because you get to hold up interaction, and if they don't have anything worth interacting with, you get to invest in your little guy a bit. Alright. It's annoying this is Chain Lightning, to be honest. Let's see if they go for a Mutavault play. No blocks. Right, so they could have woken up their fairy then, but we can Fireblast it, which I'm not a big fan of, but it's something we can do. Playing the Ensnaring Bridge now feels terrible. Holding up Searing Blaze feels acceptable. We're holding up Searing Blaze and potential Fireblast, but yeah, this fairy being online now, and our hand hasn't really come together to do very much. Flames of Anor. They want to kill our creature and draw some cards. Yep, that spell's pretty good if you got a wizard, but that does mean that our Ensnaring Bridges are probably safe. We do need to empty our hand though, which Fireblast is kind of awkward for because it removes your mountains, which are the things you need to pay for your spells to empty your hand. Playing around this Chain Lightning being thrown back at us is also pretty annoying. Right, there's a Ponder. Like with another land, we can just start doming this Sleep Cursed Fairy. I'm not even sure if our opponent's running deck. We haven't seen the days yet. Doesn't mean they're not running it. Their deck is kind of on the tempo spectrum, so wouldn't be surprised to see it. I wonder if there's any new Ixalan cards that are in our opponent's list. Right, there's a mountain. Are they going to activate their Mutavault? Maddening Hex, you say? How do we feel about Maddening Hex? Whenever we try to play a cast a non-creature spell, they get to spin the Wheel of Doom. Okay. Well, do I feel lucky? That's where we're at this point. Maddening Hex. That's an interesting line. It's kind of the thing that we're doing, but different. Not having a land here is pretty awkward. We don't really have much choice here. So we get a mountain with this one. Not a bad matchup, not a bad game for Price of Progress, but I don't think we can reliably bring in Price of Progress here. Maybe 3 Searing Blaze is too many. It hits a lot of their creatures. And if we had another land, it would hit this fairy. We can bounce this Maddening Hex out of play with our little Viper. Alright, I have a feeling I know what's going to happen this turn, and it's not going to make me feel that happy. Right, here comes this guy. Yep. Let's take some damage from our own stuff. Force of Will, pitching the fairy. Sure. We have to attack here. If you activate your Mutavault, I will try and Searing Blaze it. And we're just going to try and roll well under Maddening Hex. I'm going to go get ourselves the Volcanic now, so that we at least have the out if we want it later. for bouncing their thing. Let's see how we roll on the Maddening Hex. 2. Okay, I can live with 2. Uh-oh. Spellstar Sprite. There's no way we can stop this from countering our spell. They're just gonna... Yeah, I don't think we can win this one now. I think this is lights out. Yeah, our hand was very awkward, which is kind of what you get with these situational cards, which is kind of one of the things I did mention at the start. Felt like we kind of need these for Murktide, but maybe we didn't need them for Murktide. We could have just had more burn spells, like a Price of Progress there. We could have been jamming quite a lot of damage at our opponent, instead of having these things just rotting away in our hand. So maybe that's on me a little bit there, and we could have boarded differently. But if they just make an early Murktide, they can just absolutely slaughter us. So it's kind of down if you do, down if you don't. I guess we're supposed to high roll and just hope the Viper can do enough in those situations. And Searing Blaze is kind of a weird one. Like, it hits their Snapcasters, their Spell Stutters, their Mutavaults, but it's not great against a Sleepcast Fairy. We only had 3 of them, so it's not like we're all in on it either. We just happen to have a Blaze heavy hand. So, interesting. Let's go to round 3. We're still in search of a match win. This is a 1-lander on the draw. Gives us 2 draw steps to find a land. Our hand isn't even that exciting if we do have a land. I think we'll mulligan this one. Alright, I like this one. Kind of showcases, or it might showcase the stuff a bit better. Do we want this Mesa or do we want this Volk? The Volk we can definitely bluff stuff with. If that's what we're interested in, we can always just get it off the Mesa. Yeah, I think we're probably throwing the Volk away. And there's a Saga. Alright, so this is going to be a little bit of an awkward one for us, because this only bounces at sorcery speed. So I think the play here is suspend this bad boy. So they're probably going to play an Ancient Tomb this turn, which isn't the worst for us, but they're going to get... Oh no, not an Ancient Tomb. Interesting. This means our opponent's probably more on the combo spectrum. Yep. Or they could just be relying on using Petals to make Sagas. This could be like a Tennis Capone Paradoxical Outcome deck or Black Saga Storm. That's where I would guess here. Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Okay, we're looking at Bomberman then. Goblin Engineer. What is this Engineer going to do? Put something nonsense in our graveyard, I suspect. So let's just read through this to make sure I know exactly what it is. Exile target card from a graveyard. When a creature card is exiled this way, stuff happens. So this can now get bigger whenever it wants. So how are we supposed to beat that? We bounce it. Or we bounce the Cauldron. I think that's better than bouncing the Engineer. Opponent's got 1 card in hand, so if we bounce the Engineer, it does give them more stuff to work with, because they can go and shoot something else up, potentially. Scalding Viper, though, having a good time. So let me see if I've got this right. You may spend... creatures you control +1 have all activated, all cards exiled. So this will go, so this will lose the ability, because this will be gone. If we bounce this, they get another creature with a +1/+1 counter on them, we're in trouble. So let's steam clean this Soul Cauldron. Alright. Wait, we've done this wrong, right? Because they're just going to make an infinitely large creature and kill us now, right? Cast... Yeah, we've just completely punted this game. If we bounce this, then they can't do that. And they make their guy infinitely large. Yeah, that was a bit of a punt. Whoopsies. Maybe we're supposed to target that with a Rift Bolt and get a load of cards out of our opponent's deck maybe, and then bounce it. We get to see our opponent's deck here, but we have just punted this game in a horrible way. Alright. This is my brain coming off of a bout of gastroenteritis. So I have not been eating the most amount of food. I finally ate the first proper meal for 4 days today. So I'm going to blame it on that instead of me being an idiot. Pwah, 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 pwah. Yeah, maybe we should have had that game. That's an embarrassing one. Okay, Searing Blaze seems useful here. Meltdown seems very good here. Ensnaring Bridge, I don't... Like, obviously they're trying to make an infinitely large creature, but they're probably going to have some sort of combo-tastic way of doing it anyway. Like Walking Ballista type stuff, so I don't know if we want that. And there's only so many things we get to put in our deck at the end of the day. Price of Progress is okay here. Rift Bolt's kind of a bit meh. Like Price of Progress, the game might not go on that long. That's why I'm thinking about Price of Progress. But it probably is just the Rift Bolt here. Are we supposed to have Ensnaring Bridges for this matchup? I think it's slow. Alright. we have an answer to the thing if we actually direct it at the right thing instead of being an utter clown. So we should get 4 damage out of our Goblin. Let's see what we reveal for them. An artifact land, sure. It's annoying how my brain immediately found the correct play about 1 second after I clicked the wrong one. Good brain. So they can't do anything with our Chain Lightning now. So they're going to discard here because of our Goblin Guide. Alright, they're not discarding a combo piece into the graveyard, that's something. Chain Lightning. So we could have brought in Leylines as well as another option, but I don't think that's where I want to be. I think I'd rather save the Scalding Tarn for instant speed. Yeah, we can get instant speed, Searing Blaze off of that later on. So let's just start smashing with the Goblin Guide. Okay. Pace on. They can't Chain Lightning us back now. So I think we are incentivized to Chain Lightning them once. And are we supposed to do it again, or are we supposed to suspend the Rift Bolt? I think we suspend the Rift Bolt. Ancient Tomb, okay. So they can play an Urza this turn, which is probably going to roadblock our attacks. Yep, so there's the Urza. We're going to have a little construct now. It's not so little, to be honest. We can bounce this if we want to. But I think we are in the stage of shooting things at our opponent's face. Let's put them to 8. So we're pretty close to lethal. Alright. So we can Lava Spike them. So this is tap an untapped artifact you control, add blue. And they can get a random card. I don't think that's... Is that enough to make me bounce this now? You're supposed to Chain Lightning while the getting's good. I think so. We kind of want this for Searing Blaze to max out the damage, which I think does mean that we are Chain Lightninging. Is that how we're going to say that? We're going to cast a Chain Lightning at our opponent's face. What is this? A Hydroblast. Sure. I guess I'd rather counter a 1 mana 3 damage spell than something like a 4 damage spell, like a Fireblast or something. This Ancient Tomb is very precarious for our opponent's life total. It's going to be an Engineer. Okay. Have they got the Soul Cauldron as well? No, the Shadow Spear. So they're going to try and use that to gain some life next turn. We can bounce the Goblin Engineer to stop that from happening if we're interested in that. We have a Fireblast. What does that do for us here? I don't believe it does anything. So we have 2 options here. We can either draw off the Fiery Islet, hoping to hit something that costs 1 red mana and kills our opponent, into a potential Hydroblast. Or we can bounce this Goblin Engineer and buy ourselves another draw step. The bouncing doesn't play into Hydroblast. I think I'm down for that. I think we steam clean this. The next turn we're probably going to have the same choice to make, but we get 1 more draw step to make that choice with. There's the Engineer again. Do they draw a Soul Cauldron off the top? We can block a big guy, but there's probably some other nonsense they can do with it as well. Alright, they've got Soul Cauldron in the bin as well. Our opponent untapping is going to be bad times for us. Alright, they're tapping out. Well, they're not tapping out because... Oh, they are tapping out. They are using their artifact. I was going to say they're not tapping out because they can still tap their construct, but we're going to see here. Transmute artifact. Could be transmute artifact here. Just another, just to give them another guy. Okay, so they're not tapped out, but they're hellbent. They're doing this just to get another construct. Alright. Come on, deck. Chain Lightning, you say. Alright, let's Chain Lightning our opponent. Let's get ourselves a mountain. We know our opponent has nothing here, so we're just going to say goodnight and smash him with the Fireblast. Alright, I wish we didn't punt the first game, but maybe we can bring it back. Do I want Ensnaring Bridges now? I think the Meltdown is just better for what we're worried about for the most part. Like Dead and Gone is certainly interesting, and I'm kind of come around to it a little bit more. But the instant speed of Dead Gone is really nice. But Scalding Viper dodging Hydroblast is so good. Am I convincing myself to play these Dead Gones over these Rift Bolts? I think I am. We could, like I said, we could play the Leyline in the Void, but that is like a big do-nothing button sometimes. And our opponent can just win without using their graveyard at any point. We'll keep this. We have 1 drop into 1 drop plus burn spell into Meltdown. So our opponent spams a bunch of permanents this turn. This could be a good turn for us. Oh my god. What is happening here? There's an engineer. Soul Cauldron. Our opponent's got 2 cards in hand. I think not taking the 4th one here would be bad. Now, if they've got the Hydro Blast, then we're in trouble. I think our opponent wins the game pretty quickly after that. All right, we got a 4-for-1. That was nice. If our opponent plays a Great Furnace, that's pretty good. A Seat and another 0-drop. I would love to find just a good old-fashioned Lightning Bolt here. Go on, attack for 1. They did not want to attack for 1. Goblin Guide. That's why they did not want to attack for 1. Right, we'll crack this. We'll go and get ourselves. Then we get the Volk now. Play this guy. Play this guy. Attack. A Mox Amber. That does not give them red mana. Ancient Tomb. Mox Amber. Sure. A Goblin Guide. Okay. A Swiftspear. Attack with everything. How many cards does our opponent get to draw? Another Ancient Tomb. Rona. Okay, let's reread this one. Whenever you cast a legendary spell, untap this card. Tap, draw a card, discard a card, transform it, and then it does some other stuff. I imagine it's there as a thing that turns on Mox Amber. Oh, they've just conceded straight up. Turn 1 Meltdown, pretty good. But we should have won the first game with our little bounce guy. That was entirely on me. We did manage to bring it back for the match, so we had to win this one 3-0 because of my incompetence. But we got there. We got a match on the board, and the Viper was really good. Now, I don't know why Wizards of the Coast wouldn't allow us to have it as an instant speed on the front half when it's only a 2-1 body on the back. Seems a little bit rude, but there we are. Anyway, on to round 4. The positive record still is up for grabs. Our opening hand for round 4 is terrible. Let's mulligan. This hand is also terrible. This hand is what we're going to be keeping. So I don't think we need 2 lands here. Annoyingly no mountain, which kind of makes me reluctant to keep this Fireblast. I guess we're doing this. Maybe we can trick our opponent. I don't think we need to just start firing stuff upstairs straight away. We just play out, have a lightning bolt, see how we go. Play around daisies. We're on low resources here, so we're going to need to try and leverage every single one of them. Right, we got Viper. I don't think we want to be firing off just yet. Our opponent probably has no idea what we're doing as a deck, though. A Brainstorm, sure. We don't want to give our opponent any information by bolting them to the dome or anything. We want our opponent making their decisions with as little information as possible. In the hope that they don't have anything good going on. So we kind of feel like a weird control deck, perhaps, that just happened to draw its basic mountain. That's the vibe I'm trying to give off. Right, they're fetching non-basics, that's good. Dak Faden, you say. How do I feel about that one? That's a lot of selection. I'd like to draw 2 and discard 2. Okay. I'm not expecting days. This Uro in the bin is bad times for us, though. Alright, we have to make a move now, I believe. So here comes a lightning bolt. They will just go over the Eidolon here. So what we're supposed to do is chain lightning them. So we're looking at something that looks a bit Strythopile-y. So we're hoping to avoid this Uro for a turn, which seems very unlikely given the Dak Faden. But maybe they won't hit the right mana. Maybe they'll be too important a thing that they want to... Okay, so here it comes. And they got basic. Yep, here comes the Uro. Now we can bounce this, but they do get to redeploy it in 2 turns, basically. They'll cast it from hand, loot with Dak Faden, cast it from graveyard. So I don't fancy our chances versus the Uro. Lightning Bolt probably isn't the one here, is it? I think we have to steam clean this. I enjoy saying steam clean, though. Is that something? Our opponent is reading this card, which is fair enough, because I certainly had to spend some time reading it when I was sent this deck. Okay, so they're Force of Willingness. So we need them to play some non-basics. If our opponent is smart, they will just not play any. Alright. They've given us a chance. We've got 12, 13, 14, 15 points of burn in hand right now. Now, it's going to take multiple turns to actually fire this burn off. So we're going to be a little bit behind because of the life gain. Another Uro. Okay, back up to 20 life. And it's turn 5. Not really where we wanted to be as a burn player. We did have to mulligan to 5 this hand, which was I think that was this game, wasn't it? So that was not where I wanted to begin this one. A Scalding Tarn. Not unhappy to see it, but it's not spectacular. Alright, so they're going to go up to 23, possibly 26 this turn if they recur their other Uro. They can do like Dack Fade and Ultimate stuff at some point, but it's not that exciting. Whenever you cast a spell that targets one or more permanents, gain control of those permanents. It's not really going to do very much. Alright, Uro. So they're not putting extra lands, they're just keeping in enough to hard cast Force of Will. I see. So we take 6 here. So this is 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. We can dome our opponent for 9 right now. Is that going to be enough? Almost certainly not. Drawing the lock. Yeah, I think you've got this one, opponent. Alright, we got pretty smashed up there. So what do we want for a matchup like this? Like, Uro is obviously a problem. Is it enough of a problem that we bring in Leylines? Or are we just hoping that the Ensnaring Bridges will kind of do the same job? They only get one trigger on the way in, one trigger when they come into play. Is that going to be good enough? Is Ensnaring Bridge versus Dack Fade okay? Yes, if they steal it, I guess they can draw a bunch of cards. Maybe the Leylines are better than the Bridges. Turns off Drown the Lock as well. I don't know if we want 4 of them though. Maybe it's so bad we do want 4 of them. We probably want these Firecrafts over the Rift Bolts as well, and that's a relatively clean cut. Alright, not feeling confident about this one, but we've avoided the 05 already. What does our hand do? We go Lightning Bolt, hope to draw land. If we draw land, it's okay. We don't actually have the thing for this though. This hand is fine with another land, and if we're not drawing another land, what we're drawing more burn spells. I guess we keep. This is kind of a dilemma with burn. Like, you don't want to mulligan because you're such a critical resource deck. So you're way more likely to keep dodgy opening hands. So you don't get to leverage the London mulligan rule, which is kind of like ridiculously powerful right now, which is why combo decks have been so good since the London mulligan rule, because they get to actually have a real chance of finding their stuff and keeping good opening hands, whereas burn hasn't really benefited as much from it because you're a critical mass deck instead of a key pieces deck. Okay, Polluted Dells from our opponents. They're going to find their basic island to begin with for like Ponder, or they do not have that luxury. Excellent. Seal of Fire. Right, our creature is probably not going to be long for this world. I'm happy to Lightning Bolt my opponent. So the reason they're playing this is that new 2-mana card that if you have enough permanent cards in your graveyard, it does some cool stuff. I believe this Eidolon will receive a counter spell. If they have one of those. What am I talking about? I'm just going to Seal of Fire it. But we have to work through the Seal of Fire at some point, right? Right, 2 non-basics. We have an Exquisite Firecraft, and we have a Lightning Bolt. We can Lightning Bolt and draw a card. I quite like that as a play. Assassin's Trophy, you say? Yes, I'll go and get ourselves a mountain here. So they're going to cast an Uro now. Alright, let's Lightning Bolt our opponent and counterspell part of their Uro. Doesn't feel great, I'll tell you that. Eidolon the Great Revel is pretty decent though. That's Lava Spike. Is Eidolon the Great Revel pretty decent? I think it's fine here. It means any cantrips or anything that they need to fill up the graveyard with for the Uro are going to be at a cost. Assassin's Trophy. Yeah. So we get to ping them for 2. We get ourselves another mountain. I like having all these mountains not in our deck. It's Brainstorm. Filling up their graveyard for Uro. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if they find a fetch land, then they're in with Uro. Not find a fetch. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, they didn't find a fetch land. If they have another land and... Oh, what are we supposed to do here? I think this is upstairs with the Exquisite Firecraft. We're close. Dack Fade. Right, we've got ourselves a turn here. Before the scary thing happens. But they are filtering their draws to have the best hand against what we're doing. So it's going to be a tight one. So Drown the Lock mana available. They've got loads of cards in their graveyard. What are we supposed to do here? We are unfortunately not quite close enough. So they play the Uro. They're going to go up And they're going to immediately be able to replay it. So they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards in graveyard. Next turn will be 8 cards in graveyard. Turn after will be 10 cards in graveyard. And it's 5 each time. So they will just be able to immediately play Uro every turn, which is kind of the same as attacking with it at the end of the day. So I think that means we play the Viper out as a Viper. Alright, I think our opponent has this game now. Uro is just such a beating for burn. Orcish Bowmasters. Okay. Our opponent is on 1 life more than the damage we can currently deal, which is very sad. Play a fetch land, please, opponent. Crack your fetch land. Okay. This probably means that our opponent has... Well, they were telegraphing Drown the Lock earlier anyway. Alright. We have 1 play available to us here. And it's... We either win the game or we immediately lose the game. We any good? Wow. Our opponent did not need to crack that fetch land, in my opinion. Whew. I guess they were trying to get the other green, weren't they? That's what they were trying to do there, actually. So they had to crack it to get the green. But I don't think you can go to 4. Although, if you just get this 1 spell off, you do win. I don't think they used DAC this turn, did they? Oh, no, they did use DAC as well. Interesting. All right. Don't want to do anything differently. No, I think that was okay. We somehow managed to wriggle our way through. I think on the draw this becomes much more difficult. We have a very aggressive hand here. So we will keep this and we will try and bring the pain as much as we can. Seal of Fire, you say? Do you want to waste a Seal of Fire on our Swiftspear when you know we play Eidolons in our deck? This is the bait spell. Yeah. They're just prioritising their life total. That's pretty understandable and fine. Obviously the texture of their hand will dictate how good a play that is as well. So we can play a Drown in the Lock. Oh, sorry, we can play this into Drown in the Lock. Or we can just double Lava Spike our opponent. I'm kind of into Lava Spiking. Because they had the fetch land, so they could Drown in the Lock. So I didn't think it was worth playing that. Blue and a green? No. Black and... Okay, yeah. So Bowmasters. Sure. Are they going to cast an Uro? Oh, they put green in their pool. That's sad for us. Alright, that's probably game. On the play, Uro on 3. Can they play it on 4 as well? 1, 2, 3 cards in graveyard. So they might not be able to play it next turn. So we might have a slight reprieve from that. But they are now so far ahead. And Uro beats Eidolon very easily. Oh, Uro is so much better than the things we're doing. Alright, Goblin Guide. Pow. Eidolon. Pow. Let's draw them an extra card. Oh, Brainstorm. No, you don't get to draw that. That means Uro is more likely this turn, right? Because they can Brainstorm into a fetch land. Actually, no, the bad lands doesn't cast it, right? So they don't get to make Uro this turn. If we draw a land, we've got 7 damage in hand, which isn't enough to kill our opponent. It's a fetch land, so next turn they get the Uro. Exquisite Firecraft. So we can kind of load these one after the other. They've Brainstormed, so they can probably draw a card if we attack, but that's not really the metric that we're winning or losing this game on. I think we need to shove points of power here. They're going to play the Uro, so we don't care if they kill our Eidolon. They'll probably be tempted to double block it here. Unless we're just going to see another Orcish army token, and that's going to be pretty savage. Alright, they just shuffled away after the Brainstorm. Yep, so they're going for the trade there. That's fine. Alright, upstairs with the fire. You can see how close we are. It's tantalizing. If we draw a Fireblast, we've got a good chance at trying to kill them next turn. If we draw the little bouncy guy, we're probably not getting them. Although maybe we can slow them down enough as long as we rip well. Blue and black in their pool. Interesting. What would you prioritize over getting your Uro into play? Whale of the Forgotten. What mode are they choosing? Target opponent discards a card. Okay. So that's the card I mentioned earlier there, the new card they're running. And now they play the Uro. Interesting. Like, if we have a Fireblast, they would die anyway, so... Right, we're trying to draw Fireblast again. Or the Price of Progress. We've got those in our deck. They're pretty good. Okay. Like, we keep doing it. We've got a few turns of getting a smash down for loads. They go up to 6, which means, again, Fireblast can win us the game. Or Price of Progress. They're attacking with an Uro. Maybe we have a chance to attack and get 2 damage in with our Goblin Guide. This is obviously worth it for them. They gain 3 life. And they only take 2, so it's +1. Alright, another Uro. So they're now up to 9. Price of Progress is lethal still. Because the Polluted Delta, if they crack it so that it's not a non-basic, they lose 1 life. Price of Progress is lethal if they don't have a creature. Sorry, not Price of Progress, Fireblast. Goblin Guide. Not a big fan of playing this one out here, but I think this is the play. We can force some damage through. Uh-oh. Going to 8. We're going to see some bow boys. Or they got endurance. This is a big booty. Otawara. Okay, so they can bounce our guy if they want to. Now they do have an endurance. So we forced 2 points of damage through. That's something. Okay, so we're now in an awkward territory. Because they're going to hit us for 9 this turn. And they're also going to gain 12 life. Because they can replay this other Uro most likely. Which means we are going to struggle a little bit. Oh, they just played another non-basic though. That helps us out. Price of Progress doesn't kill us, but our opponent's got 7 cards in hand. So the chance of them having a... Right, they've got another Uro here. Have they got another card to put in the graveyard? They do. So they're going to gain another 3 life. Because they're going to play this other Uro. So they have an untapped Uro. So we can't even attack with our Goblin Guides. So it's effectively gaining 5 life here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12. We can dome them for 12 with a Price of Progress. But we gave ourselves the maximum amount of draws here to try and win the game. And it didn't quite fall for us. But this game felt relatively close. Now our opponent's got a whole boatload of cards in their hands. So they might have all sorts of things to get in our way. Like Drown in the Lock. Or they can Assassin's Trophy their own things. I think you can hit your own permanents with Assassin's Trophy. And yeah, we have to see about this. Price of Progress. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Does our opponent have the thing? This wins us the game if it resolves. If it doesn't resolve, we lose the game. All or nothing. Ooh, a brainstorming response. I like the look of that. Rub my little hands together. Are we going to get there? We're not. Our opponent could have avoided having to counterspell this, though. I think they played very greedily. We lose, though. I don't think they needed to play out as many lands as they did. I think they certainly, like in the second game as well, they went to 4 when we could have had a Fireblast, and I think when we don't have pressure in play, I'm skeptical if you're supposed to do that. But again, it's a tight run thing here. But in this game, they definitely put too many non-basics into play. They didn't have to. They certainly gave us options. Now, if their hand was just like 3 Force of Wills or whatever, then sure, they had us covered. But the way they brainstormed there made me think they didn't have it, and they had to brainstorm for it at the end. So, I don't know, I feel that was close, and the deck felt all right that game. Let's go to round 5. Let's see if we can get the 2-3. Lots of lovely red cards. No mana to cast them. Okay. I'll keep this 1 lander, I suppose. What are we throwing back here? Is it Price or is it Fireblast? I think we'll throw back 1 Price. I don't think our opponent is likely to wasteland us if we have pressure in play. It's normally not a great play to do. Obviously, it would absolutely ruin us, but they don't know that. So we're looking for a land, maybe. A basic. That's not great for our price. Let's go to tax. Let's suspend this. Now they might wasteland us because they've seen us miss a land. Alright, they're doing an end of turn brainstorm, which either means a hand needs a lot of help. They have their mana spoken for next turn. They just want to make sure they have the best opportunity. Or they have like a really good hand and they're just wanting to make sure it's like the final shored up pieces. Stand still. Okay, that's an interesting one. We have the threat in play. I guess our Rift Bolt is going to immediately crack it, isn't it? Ah, well. The whole point of playing Burn is you're playing virtual card advantage where your opponent dies with a bunch of cards in their hand. A Goblin Guide. Right, let's send in the clown. Alright. What you got on top of your library, opponent? A Plateau. So if we're looking at some kind of Jeskai control, uncertain how useful our Price of Progress is going to be, I imagine our opponent can play pretty well on basics and probably has Prismatic Vistas in their deck as one of their fetch lines. There is a Tundra. Prismatic Ending on our poor little Goblin Guide. Sure. Swords to Plowshares on our poor little Monastery Swiftspear. Okay, we're lacking what you would describe as creatures right now. And we're also lacking what you describe as lands. So not a big fan of how this is working out for us. But sometimes you keep one landers and this happens. Oh no. Not a big fan of that opponent. Very sad. Okay. Come on. Rubbish Ensnaring Bridge. Whoop whoop. Right. I think you can imagine what I'm going to say about this Ensnaring Bridge at the end of this league. Yeah. Alright. What have you got there? They're just making a 4-4, which is certainly better than anything we're doing. Lava Spike? Nope. Why is there not like a Force of Burn where you can like just pitch a red card and deal like 5 damage to something? Just lava axe people to the face with 2 cards. I'll play that in this. Okay, Teferi, that's pretty good. Feels like we're playing against like an old school Shark Steel build that we haven't seen for a while. Alright. That's not the one either. Another standstill. Oakley dokley. Well, we found a land. Let's get ourselves a mountain. I think our opponent is more likely to be able to answer creatures. So I'm just going to start blasting their face here. Go on then, draw a bunch of cards. They can't hard cast the Force of Will, so we might get one. We might get 1 life out of them if they don't. Alright, they do have Spell Pierce though. Alright. 7 points of damage left to deal. We've got 3 turns of this dragon beating us down. Price of Progress, 2, 4, 6 damage right now. That's not too shabby. Will we resolve it? That is another question. We can buy ourselves some time here, if that's what we're interested in doing. So we can bounce this. Like we can try and kill our opponent this turn, or we can try and bounce their Timeless Dragon. We lose to counter spells regardless. I think we're going to Steam Clean. Maybe I'm just enjoying Steam Clean too much. You're going to protect your little guy? Go on to the Spell Pierce. Sure. So that was going to counter whatever we did there. Unless we played the Eidolon, which feels like a massive trap here. Yeah, sure, you can draw a whole bunch more cards. You certainly haven't drawn enough cards yet, opponent. You've only got 31 cards left in your library now, so clearly slacking. Come on, draw some more. Oh, the punish. Punish. If we can find a land, though, we can put a win on the stack, potentially. Mountain. Mountain. Oh, you're not a mountain. This will put a draw on the stack. Sure, why not? It's better than losing. This is going to go and get the Spell Pierce, and we're going to have our spell counterspelled, and we're going to lose the game. Bwah, bwah, bwah. Alright. Not the one. Exquisite Firecraft. That seems like it's going to be good here. Ensnaring Bridge. Get in the bin. We don't care about you. I think we want Dead and Gone or Meltdowns or any of this jazz. Nope. I think we're just replacing the bridges with the Firecrafts and just going in. I don't think we want to try and stop them getting their dragon up and running. I don't think that's worth our time. Okay. This hand looks alright. We can suspend a Rift Bolt, start jamming Eidolons, and hopefully make our opponent have a bit of a miserable time. If they hold up a Spell Pierce, it won't do anything for our Eidolon if they want to try and hold it for something better than the Rift Bolt. No, they might just Rift Bolt. They might just cancel the Rift Bolt and just take the 3 life there. Just cast a little healing salve. And cast healing salve, opponent. They do not. So we're going to work on basic mountains here. I don't believe our opponent has lightning bolts in their deck. Alright, Force of Will. Sure. So we got 3, 6, 9, 10, 11 points of burn at the moment. But that could increase quite a lot depending on what our opponent gets. Oh, they got for a Tundra. Not respecting the price of progress. So they don't have red right now. So I'm inclined to chain lightning our opponent and see what happens here. Alright, we're just in. In that case, I think I'm going to chain lightning again. I was quite tempted to suspend the Rift Bolt there. But the fact that our opponent didn't have... I guess we don't really care if they fire the damage back at us. Maybe that was... So we're going to suspend this. Pass. Our opponent might not be doing anything with his turn cycle. Excellent. A Timeless Dragon. Sure. So we've got lethal damage coming in pretty quick here. Oof. Another non-basic. That's not what you wanted, opponent. Alright, let's lightning bolt you. Alright, 7. Let's Rift Bolt you. Do you want to get a 4? What is in your hand, opponent? How would you like an uncounterable burn spell to the face? Alright. Not sure why our opponent kept their hand. Let's just go back in. I like this. We've got another one of those horrible one-landers that really jammed us up last time. If this was a mountain, I think I would keep it. I kind of got burned pretty hard last time. Alright, this seems fine. This is going to be where our opponent keeps stuff where the price of progress looks terrible. But last time they kept a hand, they got absolutely ruined by price of progress. Keep this, we'll throw away a price, and we'll just carry on. Are we supposed to play into our opponent's face-up white removal here? I don't think we are. I think we're supposed to wait a turn when they don't have the white removal up. If they don't do anything this turn with their mana. So I'm expecting to play something like a standstill this turn. Yep, there it is. So we're going to crack this standstill and send 2 goblins at our opponent's face while they don't have the mana to remove either of them. Alright, Goblin Guide. Like they're always going to get these 3 cards. But this way, we actually force 2 more damage through than we would have done. And since the goal is to force through enough damage, that seemed like a shrewd play to me. Alright, opponent. Flood Strand. You draw all the lands, I guess. Sure. Our opponent's got 9 cards in hand on turn 2. Not too shabby. Play more non-basics, opponent. We threw away one of these Price of Progress and it just came back again. And our opponent now has a hand that does nothing. We didn't need it in the last game when we had it, and now we have it and we can't use it. Very sad. And now they're going to fix their hand up with a Brainstorm. They're definitely going to be discarding some cards this turn, which is nice. They're not going to get the max value out of Standstill. It's going to be more of a filtering tool. But in this matchup, they're unlikely to use all of the tools at their disposal. It's going to be a case of either finding a hard stop to what we're doing or killing us before we get to finish them off. There's a Flooded Strand. I don't know if this island is still in our opponent's hand. I'm inclined to cross this island off actually because they may or may not have it. I don't want to think I have information I don't, if that makes sense. It's not really a thing I'm going to play around, but I don't want to lure myself into a false sense of, oh, okay, they've only got this many non-lands in hand. If that makes sense. Just a Snapcaster Mage. This is just to get someone on the board and not discard. So this will trade with one of our goblins. We can just play another one though. I'm not opposed to just smashing another goblin in what we can. How many cards would you like, opponent? I bet they've got at least 1 land on top of their library. Who can pass up this value? Okay, a Brainstorm. Still the Brainstorm. Still the Brainstorm. We take 4 this turn and go to 10. We've got 6 damage in hand, plus whatever this Viper can do. There's the island, so I did keep that one. Right, they're eternalizing their dragon. That's fine, we can force through 2 damage or we can bounce this dragon. And I think we will steam clean this away. Get out of here, dragon. Force of will. So we have a choice now. We can either force through 2 damage or hold back and possibly force through 4 another time. I think the correct play is to force through the damage here. Because our opponent's deck has probably got a decent chunk of creature removal. If we hold back, we may never get damage out of these Goblin Guides. At least we get to get some damage out of them. So we put our opponent to 7. If they play another non-basic, we do have lethal amounts of damage of 2 cards. But they're probably unlikely to play that. This has a gain life mode, doesn't it? Exile target attack creature, you gain 2 life. Yeah. Bit sad, but such is life sometimes. Exquisite Firecraft. Think we are... I'm just trying to debate if we are... This is a 3-turn clock with the Wandering Emperor. I don't think we're shooting the Wandering Emperor. I'm just trying to work out if we fire something off while our opponent is tapped out from things like Spell Pierce. This is only 2 damage though. It's very mana efficient to use right now. It takes us 2 damage as well though. I think we fire off the Lightning Bolt now, whilst they can't interact with it, unless they have a Force of Will. That's always going to snag something. If it's snagging a Lightning Bolt, that's better than hitting a Price of Progress that will hopefully deal 4 damage. Alright, this is a 3-turn clock, so here's number 1. Puts it down to 10. There's that Brainstorm that we saw earlier. Just play some non-basics, please, opponent. I don't think they will. I think the only reason they played on so many non-basics last time was because they had to. Oh, no, they played one. Alright. A Fiery Islet. I do think we fire this one off. Puts us to 9, which is an awkward amount of life. It shuts off our Fiery Islet if our opponent has... Oh wait, we don't have Spell Mastery here, do we? Oh dear. We don't have 2 more instants or sorceries in our graveyard. Maybe we are supposed to fire off the price first. But the problem with firing the price off is that it kills us once we play the Fiery Islet. Yep, getting hit by that Spell Pierce is pretty awkward. If we fire off the Price of Progress, our opponent takes it, quite likely, goes to 2, but then we take 4, sorry, and go to 5, and then this kills us. And if we don't play the second land out, we go to 7, and they put us to 1 and shut off our Fiery Islet anyway. I don't know. Maybe that's a slightly better play, but we need our opponent to play another non-basic so we can try and draw this game. Alright, they're not helping us out here. A Rift Bolt. That's not good enough, is it? What can we draw here? If we crack our Fiery Islet to draw a card, we can find ourselves 1 mana spells. None of our 1 mana spells are good enough, so our plan is to pass the turn and Price of Progress if our opponent plays a non-basic. And I hope that's good enough. Alright, I'm going to go out on my own terms, I think. I can find a Fireblast, but that's not going to be good enough. This not being an actual 1 mana burn spell. It's probably just Dovin's Veto. It is, yeah. I think our opponent just had us coming and going there a little bit. Alright, that was a bit awkward, and I think we finished with a 1-4. Alright, let's talk about this deck. Well, a 1-4 is obviously a poor record. And even though this was like a top 4 of a paper tournament, I was not expecting this deck to be amazing, and I think I was pretty roundly proven right. The only like really enormous play mistake I made was in a match we ended up winning. There's probably some other little tweaks to my gameplay that I could have changed, but I think the problem is what we're doing is fundamentally not powerful. So we want our creatures as recurring things of damage, but our creatures are so bad compared to all the other creatures in the meta that it just doesn't feel like they're going to get that much damage through. Now, sometimes we did manage to ride them with quite a lot of damage, but they're so inconsistent that it just doesn't feel like a great space to be. And then we have Eidolon, which can sometimes lock ourselves down a little bit. And this Ensnaring Bridge, I don't know why this is in the main deck, if I'm being honest with you. Like, I understand the theory, and we spoke about that at the beginning, but it just didn't look anything other than a joke, to be honest. So, not happy about this one, and I don't think this should be in the main deck. We could just have some spells that do things. What I will say as well is we already have, like, some blue sources here. We should probably just play better threats. Like, we are a deck that could just play Delver, right? So you got 16 here. We got another 7 here. So that's what? 23? So that's more than a third of our deck would flip Delver. Delver is better than these guys. So maybe we should just run Delver. But then if we're doing that, why don't we run more Delver cards and just be a good deck like Delver? So there is that interesting conundrum. Like, how far do you want to go into the burn? How far do you want to... I don't know, like, if also, like, we're running all these, we could run, like, a Murktide as well. Like, it just feels like we could be running better cards than the ones we are. And we're a deck that puts a lot of cards in our graveyard, so we could be a Murktide deck. Maybe I'll try and build a burn Murktide deck that isn't just straight up Delver, that is actually just a blue-red burn deck instead of trying to mess around with things. But then you think, well, you might as well play Brainstorm. And you might as well play Daze if you're trying to, like, tempo people out. And you may as well play Force of Will. And then you kind of just go down this little rabbit hole. So maybe that's not the way to do it. But I'll be honest, it's probably going to be better than playing Burn. Just straight up Burn. What I will say is Scalding Viper, I don't know if this is just some sort of weird bias because I think the card's pretty cool. But it felt like it did some stuff for us, right? Having this ability to bounce our opponent's permanent, like, it didn't necessarily win us games, but it brought us more draw steps that could have won us the games in other circumstances. Like, we had, I think in one game we were drawing to like a 7-outer and we gave ourselves 2 draw steps to do that because of the Scalding Viper, which are 2 draw steps we wouldn't have had otherwise. And like basically no other card in Burn would give us those 2 draw steps. So that's interesting. And the other side of it is fine. It's going to be pinging a little bit. And it's one-sided, so it's not got the downside of Eidolon where you kind of trap yourself under it and then you just get tempered out by like any guy they play. So what kind of used to happen a lot was people would play an Eidolon, your opponent would play a Murktide, and you go, oh. And then you couldn't cast your burn spells because your opponent would kill you in 1 hit. But then if you didn't cast your burn spells, your opponent would kill you in 2 hits. So you just kind of killed yourself with Eidolon instead of maybe having a chance to race. So that is interesting. But being a 1 toughness creature in this day and age is a big ask. And it doesn't grow or anything. So it's not like a Delver or a Dragon's Rage Channeler where it can get out of range of like Bowmasters. As well as, you know, not being a 1-drop. So it can at least maybe do its thing under the curve of Bowmasters. So there is that. So it just feels like things aren't going quite as you want them to be. And the Fiery Islets did jam us up once because we couldn't cast our Fireblast. And it also made our Price of Progress worse. And I think we drew 2 cards off Fiery Islet in the league, so it wasn't nothing. I think you could probably trim 1 for another mountain. Probably wouldn't hurt. I think the sideboard is okay, but I think the fundamental problem of this deck is that it's burn. Like, we did win a game because we played Meltdown, right? So that's just a really powerful sideboard card rather than our strategy necessarily. So I think there's like better red beatdown decks you can play as well, like better aggressive red decks, like just putting goblins into play. You can kill people on turn 1 with goblins these days. You just stick a goblin into Muxus, and sometimes that'll kill your opponent. And then here we are trying to play like a 3 to 4 turn game with a bunch of cards that have a lot of redundancy, to be fair. We don't need specific pieces, but we do need to have enough of these pieces. And some of these pieces are less valuable than others. I think I've played burn decks in the past where they were more into the burn heavy mode. I think creatures are just worse these days. Like, people are going to be playing Bowmasters everywhere. And that's 2 blockers for your little guys. So they're not going to get that much damage in. So maybe the actual way is to play a full-on burn deck with just burn spells. So you get to run, maybe you should be looking at possibly splashing black. That gives you access to, I guess you could play your own Orcish Bowmaster if you wanted to, because why not? But you could also play Bump in the Night as another 1 mana 3 damage, as well as there's a 2 mana card that deals 4. It's like an old commander card. It's like one of these Council's Judgment where everyone chooses, but because it's 2-player, effectively it's always going to be 1 mode. Because it's like, if an equal number choose this one, this happens or whatever. And then more has to choose the other one, I think. So basically, it's either Innocent Blood or 4 damage to your opponent. So that's good. And you can also run Flame Rift, which is 2 mana 4 damage. So you just get higher damage burn spells and try something like that. I don't think you want to be going down the Skullcrack route, but maybe just like blanking 1 turn of Uro could help. I know people have tried Roiling Vortex, which is like Sulfuric Vortex, but worse in terms of the damage it puts out, but cheaper in terms of getting the life stopped. So I don't know. I don't think this is where I want to be with burn right now. I think creatures are quite prevalent in the meta right now, to be honest. It's quite a creature-heavy meta compared to years past, where burn was more viable as a budget deck. So there's more things getting in the way. And the creatures people are playing are better. And if your opponent has a bigger creature than you in burn, then you start losing the game quite quickly. So maybe the plan is to just kind of ignore that and try a different approach. I'm not 100% sure. I will keep trying with various burn decks every now and then. I don't want to play it too often because it can be a bit depressing to get absolutely smashed up with it. But I think it's important to try and explore the space of, like, you know, bad budget decks and see if you can find a budget deck that isn't as bad. Obviously, in paper, this isn't that budget because it's got Volks in. But online, it's quite cheap anyway. It's very cheap online. And we're still sort of testing a lot of the core burn stuff. Like, the only thing we're splashing for really is the Viper and the Fiery Islets. But the main problem with this deck was actually, like, burn stuff being bad, and obviously these jank cards here. So I think I'd be curious to try a build that replaces these 15 cards. Like, you could play Druid, the new questing Druid. That might be quite interesting, because that's card advantage and a decent threat. But if you go down on threats, then your opponent's removal gets better because they have less things to point it at. So they're just going to sweep up more of your things. So that's kind of awkward. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a good way to make burn viable. Maybe you're supposed to just go bigger and play more of a stompy deck instead. But again, it's not really burn, is it? So I think I've waffled about this one long enough. I'm trying to find some positives, and I'm struggling. I did enjoy Scalding Viper, and I love saying Steam Clean quite a lot. Whether or not it was worth playing, I'll let you be the judge of that one. But I did enjoy saying Steam Clean, so there is that. All right, thank you very much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. I'm trying to push up my subscribers, see if I can get to 2,500 in the next couple of months would be great. But other than that, just keep watching my content, keep watching other people's content. There's loads of good legacy content out there, so make sure you're getting your fill and enjoying all the stuff that's out there, because it is a great format. Maybe not so much when you're playing Burn, but it is a great format. All right, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.